Hey you guys, it's Peter and Pee-Pee, and we're back. Of course we're back. We're not going anywhere. We're YouTube famous now. And guess what? What? Tell the people. It's your birthday today, isn't it? It's Pee-Pee's birthday, and he is 11 today. So anyway, we were sitting around here, and I was kind of weird, just Pee-Pee and I sitting around talking, you know how that is. I actually have, like, the majority of my life gotten along better with my pets than I have just with people in life. And I was actually thinking about that when I was kind of, like, setting up the lights and stuff, and I was like gonna do this really funny story time, and I thought, you know, it's interesting because on my vlog, I tell, which is listed below, Peter Vlogs, I'm vlogging every day for the year 2017. Please go follow it. But it's interesting because I tell very endearing stories on there. I tell like true stories of my life and, you know, things that happened to me when I was growing up, and stories about my mom and my dad and just all kinds of stuff. I talk extensively on there about my sobriety. And I had kind of started telling this story one night, and I thought, I've never told that, but people seem to really relate to like the endearing stories as well as the funny stories. So I thought, you know what, like, I think today, in honor of Pee-Pee's birthday, it's like an endearing story day. So if you're coming here for a ha-ha, for a chuckle, I mean, there might be a little bit of those in there as we go, because I think life is just funny. And that's why the best thing I've learned in my life is to laugh at myself and to not take life too seriously, because life will thrust upon you moments of seriousness, moments that you have to make life-threatening decisions, you know, that will forever change your life. And so if we get very serious about the smaller things, those huge moments don't mean as much, if that means anything to you. So I have learned to kind of just laugh at the things that happen to me in life and, you know, try to take it with a grain of salt. So, of course, there will be some funniness in this story as well. So this story is about a dear friend of mine. And my dear friend's name was Johnny. Now, there's a little backstory to this, and some people have probably already heard parts of this story if you avidly watch my vlog. My ex and I were together for 6.5 years, okay? And he was from Seymour, Indiana, which is the home of John Cougar Mellencamp. When you drive in, it says home of two things, John Cougar Mellencamp and the Oktoberfest. So anyway, I loved Seymour. Seymour was small town. It was Jackson County, Indiana, and we would go down there and we would walk through the Walmart and we would go say hi to our friends. If you've never seen my pink tutu story, I'll link it below. That's about that, when my friends took me somewhere and to get out of the house, because if I couldn't handle it, I had to say pink tutu 3 times and working into a sentence. The story is 10 times funnier, so I'll link it below. But it just was really fun days, and we would go to the county fair, and we would go to, you know, the Seymour City pool, and I loved it down there. Like, I loved, and my mom would say to me, you know, you really should have grown up in a really small town, which a lot of you are probably like, Indianapolis isn't a small town. I mean, it doesn't feel that way. It feels somewhat metropolitan, right? I mean, if you're from like any other kind of like Midwestern town in Indiana, or, you know, you'll totally know what I'm talking about. Or maybe not even Midwestern, just anywhere in the United States. It's like, you know, if you're close to something, even by a half an hour, you feel big city. Do you know what I mean? Okay, so, and like, Seymour isn't even that small, right? But we would go to the county fair. Well, I have been to the state fair a lot in Indiana. I grew up going to the state fair. I mean, if you live in the Midwest and you don't go to the state fair, hello, who are you? Irrelevant, okay? Everybody goes to the state fair. You get your elephant ears, your deep fried Twinkies, your deep fried Oreos, your deep fried, your deep fried dough. I mean, there's everything deep fried in the entire world that you want. I don't like any of that, okay? I learned years ago that you go to the Milk Bar and you get a grilled cheese sandwich and a milkshake because it's like the best in the world, right? But you can get tenderloins, you can get hot dogs, you can get corn dogs, you can get anything you want to get. You can go ride the rides. I have never in my life ridden a ride at the fair. I will never. Have you seen the people that put together those things? It scares me. So anyway, but I know people love it. It's called the Midway, and you can go buy your what do you call it, bracelet for the Midway from like, you know, 11 to 3 a.m. or whatever, and ride every ride you want to ride. My husband loves it and whatever, but my favorite thing is to walk through and look at all the animals, okay? And I just love it. And the other thing I love is that you can see like where the people that are showing the animals, because my cousins used to do that. They were from Fort Wayne, Indiana, and they used to show steer and sheep. And they would stay with the animals. And so they would have their own little area that was like segmented off from the animals, and they would have like a TV and a fan and like little cots. I love that. I wanted to stay there with them. So anyway, I would go to the county fair. Well, the county fair, okay, had tons and tons of games. And it was smaller, but like, I liked it more. I don't know how to explain it. I just liked the county fair more. Well, the Seymour or the Jackson County Fair is where I met my friend Johnny. My good friend Johnny, that means so much to me. So do you know those games where you take the ball and you throw it into the, what do you call it, the fish thing? And if you get one in, then you get to pick a fish. Okay, well that's where I met Johnny. Because I took a ball and I threw it in and I got a fish. I think I had to try about $15 before I won like a 90-cent fish, but I got a betta fish, and his name was Johnny, because I love that name so much. When I was growing up, I had always stuffed animals, and I think I named about 20 of them Johnny. So anyway, they were always some kind of Y on the end. Johnny, Tommy, Teddy, Timmy, you know, those kinds of things anyway. Which is kind of how my boyfriends have gone to in my past, so I probably should have learned that growing up. But anyway, so I got Johnny, and I was all excited, and I bought Johnny this bowl, and all this kind of stuff. I was so excited, right? So that Sunday, I took Johnny home, and by that point, my boyfriend and I were living together in Indianapolis, and we would just go down on the weekends to Seymour. So he was like, listen, Johnny's gonna take a lot of cleaning up in this little bowl. Like, we should probably just buy a bigger tank and then clean it up, right? And I was like, okay. And he was like, so we can maybe buy a couple more fish. And I was like, really? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, okay, here's the one condition though. I would love to have more fish. I love fish. They don't talk back. They don't clap back. They just swim around. They're real cute. But I don't want to have to clean the tank. And he was like, I'll clean the tank. So we get this real small tank, right? Seriously, 1.5 feet by a foot. It was small. And I got 2 clownfish, and their names were Jo Beth and Mary Rose. They were the characters in Help, I'm a Prisoner in the Library. I think Sean, my ex, got a fish and named it like Janet Jackson or something. Because she looked like Janet Jackson in the Control album. Do you remember that? I want to be the one in control. So anyway, Rhythm Nation. She was the Rhythm Nation fish. But anyway, I had the children's book characters. My ex, Sean, had the Rhythm Nation dancers. So they just all swam together. But anyway, so I had Johnny, okay? Well, let me tell you, have you guys ever had a betta fish from the fair? Do you know how long they live? I mean, Johnny lived about 6 years. I'm not lying to you, okay? I loved this fish so much. I legit would come home every day, and the first thing I would do is go over the cage. I'd be like, or the cage. The first thing I would do is come over, and I would go over to the tank. And I'd be like, Johnny, Johnny, and I would feed him, and stuff. And he loved me so much. If I could take him out and hug him, I would have taken him out and hugged him. I mean, I loved this fish, right? He was beautiful. He was blue. He never grew, not one bit. He always stayed the same size. I loved him. He was blue and perfect and just always stayed the same size. You ever had a betta fish? They don't stay the same size. Okay, because that's part of the story. So anyway, often, Sean, my ex, would get off work before me, right? This is really more of a story about what a great guy Sean was, not about this fish. Just get ready. So one night we were sitting there, and I used to run a group on Thursday nights, and I got off late from work. And so it would have been Wednesday night. We were sitting there, and we were watching TV. And all of a sudden, I look over, and I see Johnny kind of swimming sideways. And I'm like, do you see that? And he's like, what? I go, Johnny's not okay. I go, he's swimming sideways. So I literally went over to the tank, and I'm like lightly tapping on the tank. And Sean's like, don't upset him, whatever. And so Sean comes over, and he's like, okay, what we're gonna do is we're going to take him out and put him into a little tank of his own tonight in case he's sick. Maybe he's just sick and whatever. And I'm like, what do you mean a tank of his own? So Sean gets this whole tank, gets an old tank, one of those small ones, those bowls, and puts a filter in it, the whole 9 yards. I mean, it makes it look very nice. He calls it Johnny's hospital room, okay? I'm 35 at the time, okay? And I'm buying into Johnny's hospital room. But I'm super concerned about this fish. And I'm like, Johnny cannot die. I was like, do you understand? Johnny cannot die. And he's like, Peter, Johnny's not gonna die. Don't worry about it, right? So I'm like, okay. Every 10 minutes, I'm up, overlooking at that. I'm like this. He's like, you're not helping. Just let him be. He's gonna just rest a little bit. He's talking to me like he's really legit, a patient in the hospital, right? He's like, just let him rest. He'll be fine, okay? So the next morning, I get up and I go to work. Johnny is not doing so well. Johnny is still kind of side swimming through the thing. So I was very upset about it, and I'm calling Sean, my ex, I'm calling Tanya, my best friend, and she's like, Peter, it'll be okay, blah, 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 whatever. Because I said, I adore animals, so much. I love them so much. Aw, good boy. So anyway, I get off of, out of my work that night, and the first phone call I make is to Sean, right? And it's 10:30 at night. And I'm like, I go, he goes, hello, and I go, how is he? Pause on the phone, right? Total silence. And he goes, Peter, and I go, how is Johnny? And he was like, he didn't make it. And I was like, oh God, I could tell. See, I can still cry telling this story, and it's about a fish, you guys. So I'm like, he goes, and I go, what do you mean he didn't make it? And he goes, when I came home, Peter, Johnny had passed away. He was dead. And I go, okay. And I like literally started bawling, right? Because I have always in my life had very strong attachments to things and anything like animate. Truly, I really have. And like I always say goodbye to places. Like if I go stay on like a vacation for a week and a half, like I'll say goodbye house, like Cornbill. Okay, right? So anyway, so I'm like, did you say anything to Johnny? He was like, what do you mean? And I go, well, what did you do? And he was like, I took care of it. Don't worry about it. And I was like, what do you mean you took care of it? And he was like, I took care of it. And I was like, you mean you flushed him down the toilet? And he was like, I took care of it. And I go, did you say anything? And he goes, yeah. And I go, well, what did you say? And he goes, I said, you were a good friend to us, Johnny. We loved you. And I think a lot of times about people that lack kindness in the world. And I think about that moment because he didn't have to say anything. He could have said to me, Peter, it's a fucking fish. Get over it, okay? But he didn't say that, you know? And we broke up the following year. And I remember I was sitting over at my friend Tanya's house. She's been my best friend for 20 years. And I wish everybody in life a Tanya. I mean, she saved my life. And I was sitting out on our front porch and we were sitting out there and we were kind of telling old stories and whatever. And I said to her, I said, you know, I had like started dating some other people. This was before I met my husband, Alex, but I just wasn't meeting anybody that I just was really that down with. And I was like, I'm never going to meet anybody like Sean. And she was like, what do you mean? And I was like, you know, he was so good through the whole Johnny thing and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, you know, like he took care of Johnny and Johnny lasted 6 years and all this kind of stuff. And Tony goes, I was like, girl, what are you laughing at? And she goes, Peter, you don't really believe that fish lived 6 years, do you? I go, Tanya, Jean, what are you talking about? Of course that fish lived 6 years. I had birthday parties for it and everything. What are you talking about? She said, sweetheart, I am not trying to bust your bubble and you are a grown man. She goes, but that was about the 15th, Johnny. And I go, Tanya, what are you talking about? And she goes, your ex was such a good guy. She goes, but I think he just really got fed up with it at the end. I go, what are you talking about? She goes, Peter, it was a beta fish you got at the fair. She goes, they die about every 6 weeks. Sean would call me and say, call Peter and have him stop by your house on the way home so I can run to the pet store and get another fish and replace Johnny because Johnny yet again has died. I go, Tanya Jean, are you telling me the truth? She goes, absolutely. She goes, I was about the 15th Johnny. She goes, the story's not about Johnny. The story's about Sean. Sean was that good of a person. And he was. And that's what I love in life, you know, is that people can just do random acts of kindness, be a better person, take the higher road, all that kind of stuff. We all screw up. We all make mistakes. We all say things we wish we wouldn't have said. Hell, I say things I wish I wouldn't have said every day. I do things I wish I hadn't done on a daily basis. But does that overall speak for my character? I don't think so. I think it's the moments like Johnny that speak of people's characters. I think it's how do you make people feel on a daily basis and do you go out of your way? What's your motives? What's your intentions, you know? Now listen, Alex knows that story and I've told him, right? And all the time I'm always like, let's get a fish. And he's like, you get a fish, you keep it in your office. I'm like, no, I want a fish. I want to have it at home. I want to have it right over there by the sink because I want my fish to be able to see outside. And he goes, Peter, that's ridiculous. He goes, just for example, if we were going to get a fish, he goes, what would you call it? Well, Johnny, of course. Anyway, you guys, I hope you enjoyed that story time. I know it was a little bit different, but I wanted to kind of tell an endearing one today for Pee-Pee's birthday, so I would remember that. So anyway, I love you guys so much. Follow my daily vlog. It's listed below. Subscribe to me, all that kind of jazz. Whatever, you know. I love you guys so much. Talk to you later. Bye.